when we talked about what is the vision and national service, I think it does not begin or should not begin at the high school level. I think it needs to go to the primary school level.
Leveraging and launching our creative industries in the country.
That's gotten mixed reviews.
Well, I think what got mixed reviews is not the concept, but the labeling.
What we do today will affect those coming after us.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12, the Weekend Edition. Coming up tonight in news, 2 men murdered on the streets of the capital this morning. What investigators are saying tonight. Police shut down stalls on Potter's Key Dock, leaving vendors livid. The former Deputy Prime Minister speaks out on BTC take-back talks. Plus, meet the Bahamas' very own superhero. I'm Vonique Toot, and NB12 Weekend starts now. Topping news tonight, 2 men were gunned down in an inner-city community early this morning as they attempted to flee their shooters. Now, homicide detectives believe they know the motive behind these latest slayings, which have pushed this country's murder count for the year to 60. Paige McCartney reports.
Police were called to the scene around 4:30 this morning after there were reports of gunshots in the area near Columbus Primary School on Wolf Road and Collins Avenue. When officers arrived on the scene, they found the proprietor of the Tip Top Bar on Wolf Road slouched inside his blue Kia Optima. He had been shot to the left side of his chest, just under his arm. Superintendent of Police Paul Roll, who is the officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, has more details.
This male was suffering from apparent gunshot wound. Officers then made contact and requested EMS for assistance. EMS also responded to this scene where, upon arrival, the officer had by that time discovered a second male who was found suffering from apparent gunshot wound to the midsection.
The second victim was trying to escape by running onto Collins Avenue, according to police, who said there was no one in sight when they arrived at the scene and that the bar had been closed for a while. But Rolls said that victim was shot in his stomach trying to flee for his life.
As the proprietor closed the establishment and he went to his vehicle, he along with his employees were accosted by 2 males that emerged from the eastern side of the building, and he had gotten into his vehicle and attempted to pull away when one of the assailants discharged a shot through the window of the driver door, striking him to the upper body, and so he died right there on the scene. His employee got out of the vehicle and attempted to run away. He was pursued by the second suspect. He tripped. The suspect shot him and took whatever he had from him, and both of the assailants then left the scene in an unknown direction.
Police say they are concerned that criminals today have little value for human life and would do anything for a quick buck. That's why they're warning members of the public to equip themselves with the knowledge of how to preserve their lives in the face of danger. While police believe robbery was the motive behind this latest incident, they believe the deaths could have been avoided had the victims not shown any resistance. They gave these tips for anyone who may find themselves in the midst of an armed robbery.
If you are confronted by an armed robber, to stay calm and do not resist. If they ask you for your car, your laptop, your cell phone, an iPad, your wallet, jewelry, or money, you are asked to comply with their demands. While complying, however, try to get a good description of the robber, the vehicle and license plate number, and the route used for escape by the perpetrator. Business owners are also encouraged not to carry deposit bags when closing their business establishments and to contact the nearest police station for assistance.
Police did not say whether the culprits in this incident made off with any cash from the business, and they are appealing to anyone who may have information on who the two alleged criminals may be to come forward with information. Reporting for MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Earlier this year, Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage, Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson, and Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with United States Attorney General Eric Holder to discuss illegal weapons that are being brought into the country, mainly from the U.S. Bahamian officials sought help from the U.S. government to reduce illegal firearm smuggling. However, Nottage says Holder explained the difficulty the U.S. faces as Americans have the right to bear arms and to travel with guns. Nottage added that U.S. Embassy officials have teamed up with the government in an effort to address the issue.
Recently, we've had an approach from the United States Embassy where they are seeking to get an agreement to establish a unit similar to the OBBAT arrangement that we have with them for the interdiction of drugs, or taking drugs off the streets, or stopping drugs from entering both our country and the United States. And this is the suggestion that they have would be directed at reducing guns coming into the country, reducing the trafficking in persons, which we are very concerned about, human smuggling.
Nottage said most of the guns identified in the Bahamas have been manufactured in the United States, which is the largest producer of weapons in this hemisphere. However, the National Security Minister said there are other transshipment points the government is aware of.
We think some of them may get here through pleasure borders. We think some of them may come through Haiti and/or Jamaica. But what we do know is the original source of those guns. Many of them are, and then people who bring in these large containers with grocery, supposedly, and other things like that. A lot of those people who may be considered legitimate residents of our country are bringing in guns, and those guns are on the streets, and people are selling them or leasing them to criminals.
The goal, he says, is to set up a special unit of Bahamian and U.S. law enforcement officials and give them the necessary training to start the program before the end of the year. Police on Eleuthera are questioning a 35-year-old man in connection with claims of unnatural sexual intercourse, assault with a deadly weapon, and threats of death. The incident reportedly happened on Thursday. Police arrested the Old Bite Cat Island resident shortly before 10 Friday morning. Police investigations continue. Vendors on Potterski Dock are outraged after a team of police officers reportedly shut down more than 90% of the stalls at that popular weekend hangout last night. Now, police claim they are operating those businesses illegally because they don't have current business licenses. As a result of last night's raid, vendors claim they lost thousands of dollars on one of their busiest nights.
Last night, it was horrible.
Vendor of 13 years, Raquel Perez, says vendors on Potterski Dock were serving hundreds of customers around 7 last night when police officers reportedly stormed in and started shutting down their stalls after they failed to produce up-to-date business licenses.
The police came out in full force and they closed everyone down on Potterski Dock.
I think they intentionally waited until Friday to do it. They could have done it in a decent way. They could have done it Monday but they waited until Friday. They know persons would not been able to do it the right way until Monday. And it was wrong. Yeah.
Do you have a problem with the manner in which police came out here?
Yeah, the police is awful. And the other stall, one police in his own clothes, he went inside and pulled out the electricity plug and was taking up food. He was awful.
President of the Potterski Dock Vendors Association, Matthew Roll, says what happened last night is a disgrace. He says those vendors who were in arrears agreed to make payments to the government in order to get their business licenses renewed. However, he says that hasn't happened.
The government give us a letter that when they could be already paid the office our money, the government now is supposed to give us a letter that we get our license. We never get no letter from the government to get our license. Okay. So now we have a big problem. And this morning, I spoke with the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and he said he had no knowledge and Portuguese Dock being closed down.
Roll says there are about 50 stalls on Potterski Dock. However, only 2 vendors were able to produce up-to-date business licenses last night. One of them, he claims, got their license in less than 3 weeks. Owner of Brother Butler's Dale Butler told NB12 he finds that strange, considering he applied to have his business license renewed months ago and still hasn't received it.
I put in for my renewals back in April, start of May. When I went back, they can't find my file of business license. I go down to DHS, they can't find the file. If my license is revoked, close me down. But if I have a license and I'm in the process of renewing it, you can't close me down because I haven't gotten the documents from you where I submitted everything, and you can see this file is complete. Everything is in this file that they want.
To make matters worse, Perez says police shut them down on one of their busiest nights, forcing them to turn away hundreds of customers. Gerald Davis from Papa 2 says despite losing business, they still have to pay those employees who showed up for work last night.
We can make, on an average weekend, anywhere from $800 to $1,000. So we lost thousands. And one like me, I have to pay my mortgage. Understand me? And that's why I'm coming out here every day to make an honest living. So that was horrible.
These people get a bunch of staff employed. They have to pay these people. So how do they expect to pay the people to shut them down? That's not business. And then you say you love Bahamians? How are you going to love Bahamians and you're doing it? At least give the people until, say, next week or week after next.
Danny Scott, who runs Danny's with his sister and son, was hard at work today serving customers despite orders from police. He says he's taking a chance being out here today because he can't afford to keep his stall closed this weekend. And he wasn't alone.
Man, my children gotta eat, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I'm not doing nothing that is so bad that like my kids gotta eat. And I gotta eat. I'm a Bahamian. That's all that matters to me. I'm a Bahamian. And everybody on this block is Bahamian. So we gotta eat, man. So not saying any means necessary. We don't want to break the law, but we have to eat. So we do what we have to do.
I fry my friends what I have to do now. So when my boyfriend go out there and rob, then what's gonna happen? You leave us no other choice. Bills gotta be paid. My baby need Pampers.
But one thing we know, we ain't going nowhere.
Now, Assistant Commissioner of Police Leon Bethel confirmed last night's raid. He told NB12 that as mandated by the Commissioner of Police, all senior officers must be on the road in an effort to prevent crime. He says his team had concentration in the East and West Bay Street areas. Based on information received from the public, Bethel says officers decided to run a check on Potterski Dock. He says, to their surprise, most of the stall owners were not operating with current licenses. He says officers also searched for prolific offenders. The assistant commissioner says he has been informed that some of those stalls were open for business today despite being shut down, and police will act on that information. He noted that officers will be back on the streets this weekend. Members of the 2 Cuban exile organizations demonstrated Friday in the port of Miami in front of the cruise ship that set sail to the Bahamas. According to the Latin American Herald Tribune, protesters claim undocumented migrants undergo abuse when they arrive at the Carmichael Road Detention Center, a claim both Prime Minister Perry Christie and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell have denied. The protest campaign reportedly continued with a hunger strike at the Bayside Marketplace in downtown Miami. During Friday's protest, activists were not allowed any closer than 295 feet from the cruise ships. Activists of the Cuban exile community displayed huge banners with slogans such as "Bahamas Stop the Cruelty Against the Undocumented." On Wednesday, Mitchell said in a statement, "We, the Bahamas, are caught in the middle of an ideological battle, not of our making, but something which is an accident of geography. The protesters should not then be turning their ire toward us, but should in the United States seek to persuade the authorities to allow their compatriots to come there if that is legally possible, not defame the Bahamas as a substitute for their misdirected anger."